When I first heard about Keijo, an anime about girls who play a sport where they have to hit each other with their boobs and butts, I thought watching it would be awful. I thought I would want to tear out my eyes, but I watched the first episode. I laughed and chuckled the entire episode, and when it was over, I couldn't believe that I was enjoying myself. This show, which had no reason to be good, was actually pretty decent. The fact that I was entertained at all was a miracle. After that, I watched it every week until it ended, and when it did end, I felt sad that I couldn't see another new episode. I ended up buying the limited edition from Funimation, not because it was an objectively great show, but because it's amazing that people came together to make a show like this, and it actually turned out entertaining. It's a testament to human creativity and ingenuity, and how a dream, no matter how ridiculous, can not only be achieved, but achieved successfully if you're prepared to do it right. Before I get into why I love this show, I need to address why it didn't become super popular the season it aired in 2016. First, a lot of people didn't watch Keijo for the same reason I thought it was going to be bad. It sounds ridiculous. How could a show about butt battles be anything other than the worst thing you've ever seen in your life? It's a fair assessment and why many people didn't give the show a shot. The second reason I believe it has a bad rap, though, is the controversy caused by feminists and mainstream journalism. Never mind that there are far more offensively sexual anime to rag on, one of which I've covered on this channel. They acted like Keijo was the most sexist, misogynistic show to ever curse the earth. I'm convinced that not a single one of these journalists watched an episode of the show. They literally just called it misogynist for being about butt battles. They claimed it objectified women because Keijo was a sport that reduced them down to their bodies, never minding the fact that all sports reduce you down to the ability of your body. Also, joke's on them because Keijo's a real sport now. It's also ironic that a group of people who popularized the term cultural appropriation in order to spread respect for other cultures also criticizes Japanese media like some kind of moral arbiter, even though they have no direct sway over the Japanese market. Like, really? You're gonna rag on someone for having fucking dreadlocks but then turn around and bash Japan for not having the same views on gender as you? Not that Japan should be immune from criticism, but it just goes to show they'd rather push their own agenda than actually respect or understand anyone's culture. Now that we addressed the retarded controversy, I want to talk about what makes this so remarkably entertaining despite everything it has going against it. Despite the ridiculous premise of its source material, Keijo was able to play off these butt-to-butt battles in a comedic fashion, similar to how an action scene would play out in 21 Jump Street or Hot Fuzz. Keijo does not take itself seriously, and pokes fun at itself without totally breaking the fourth wall. It does this by making everything about the battle scenes over the top. Characters get superpowers like wedgie acceleration, titty hypnosis, and the infamous vacuum butt cannon. In episode 5, my favorite episode of the show, one girl even has the power of having a sentient butt possessed by a spirit. The rest of her body goes limp as her butt drags her around, slamming her into people. It's a prime example of how well the show handles its ridiculous premise and uses it as an opportunity for comedy rather than lowbrow fan service. Although there is obviously still some of that fan service present, it's not as prominent as you might think. The main goal during every battle is not how much fan service they can throw at you, but how they can top the ridiculousness of the previous episode. Just when you think you've seen it all, the show reveals moves like a surface-to-surface butt missile or an over-the-shoulder nipple throw. But the humor isn't limited to the battles. During their training, they're taught subjects like astronomy.
A science called astronomy.
This show even contains thick jokes and ass-eating jokes.
Otherwise known as
Shabam!
Clearly, this show has no illusions of anyone taking it seriously, so it doesn't act serious. That's what makes it more than some garbage guilty pleasure ecchi like High School DD. The show is so self-aware that it has Sayaka's father act as the audience's viewpoint. He's in utter disbelief that such a dumb sport could exist. But just like people who watch the show, the father ends up admitting that Keijo is kind of awesome. The story is cliché and unremarkable, telling the typical story of an underdog team rising to stardom. But the story doesn't need to be impressive for the show to work. The fact that the story is cliché makes the show feel like a spoof of similar anime. In the same vein, the characters are nothing to write home about. However, I do have to make a rabbit trail right here to commend and highlight the fact that they are all 18.
I'm 18-year-old Nozomi Kaminashi.
Too many times do I watch an anime where a busty, well-developed female who looks 25 reveals that her age is 15, making you feel like the FBI is going to bust down your door at any minute for your thought crimes. So thank you, Keijo, for knowing the audience of perverts you're catering to. Besides that commendable fact, the characters, despite having some cliché arcs and motivations, are all, strangely enough, endearing. Small things make these characters stand out as charming over the dozens of other characters that fall into the same cliches. For example, Nozomi has a slight accent that the other characters do not. The accent goes along well with Nozomi's often excited and enthusiastic mannerisms to create a personality that you quickly begin to enjoy watching. Yes, like the story, the characters are pretty flat and predictable, but they work within the show's confines anyway. They're charming by themselves, and even more so when interacting with each other. Even though you've seen this story before, you want to see it play out because of the charm of the characters in it, even if they aren't all that special from a writing perspective. The animation was done by Studio Xebec, and it's pretty damn good up until the last few episodes where they resort to using CGI in some shots. When battles are going down, and especially when one of the girls is executing a special move, the movement is fluid and detailed. Detractors of the show were, of course, not happy about this either because they believed the talented staff was wasted on a garbage show. Not only did they totally write off this gem of a show based on its premise, but it's pretty hypocritical to criticize the studio for making Keijo and not rag on them for making Triage X, which they did just 1 year prior. Regardless, once you watch the show, you can definitely see how the animation helps the show beyond pure fan service. It also serves to elevate the comedy, which is what the point of the show is. I also have to take a second here to commend the OP because even though it wasn't amazing, it captured the nature and spirit of the show very well, which mainly can be attributed to the very fun pop rock song that plays over it. It's definitely a song that gets stuck in my head regularly, and for that reason, I don't skip the OP very often, even if it is pretty bare bones and simplistic animation-wise. Keijo is a surprisingly entertaining comedy and a deceptively stupid-looking package. This show had every reason to be as bad as Quasar of Sigmata or Makin Ki, but it went above and beyond to make a show that transcended its immediate labels. Along with Prison School, it's one of the only ecchi series that I can say I thoroughly enjoyed and that I would recommend to anyone looking for a fun time. If you skipped the show back in 2016, then you might want to go check it out and see if its brand of humor tickles your fancy, because there's a lot more to Keijo than meets the eye. I'm Randall the Vandal, thanks for watching.